Doom v Vamos v Vamos Epicureans. This is the Marvel Epic Collection Podcast One-Shot Edition. I'm your host, Nick Smith, and I'm joined by...
Stojr from Stojr Shelf. How's it going, Nick?
I'm doing well, particularly since we are participating in Kurtis Findlay's Epic Marvel Podcast Reading Club. I've done it again. I started with the picture from the previous episode that we just finished recording. I should be on this one that just says Volume 7, Fate of the Phoenix. So that way I can change the screen to this, our thoughts on today's... I say this and then it doesn't actually happen. Technology is beautiful. This is all user error, though. Okay, our thoughts are going to be on today's issue, which is issue number 141, Days of Future Past. This is another big one. Quick shout out to the cover there. I think if we placed ourselves in January of 1981 when this came out, after the books that we just read, this would have been intriguing, right? What do you mean suddenly all the X Men are captured or slain? We've got this wanted poster back there. Who's that woman on the front cover with Wolverine? Right? And I know the cover's iconic, but it's iconic for a reason, right? Okay, so we are suddenly thrust into the distant future of 2013, which I love this about time travel stuff when it talks about the distant future, and now we've now gone past it. Like what Back to the Future 2, right? We passed that year a couple years ago.
My son was just talking about that yesterday. He said, Mom, I'm still upset with you because we only got to watch Back to the Future 1 on Back to the Future Day. We never got to watch Back to the Future 2 that day. And I'm like, first of all, that was 10 years ago that you're holding this grudge for. And then I think about it, it's like, well, wait, that was the future, which is now 10 years in the past. And, your brain starts to fog up when you think about all that.
Wait, has the day Marty went to, was that 10 years ago?
Yeah, it was 2015.
Oh, geez. Okay. All right. I knew it happened. I couldn't remember, but okay. Anyway, so...
Yeah, because it was 1955, 30 years in the past, to 1985, 30 years in the future, and then 30 years from 55, or 85 would have been 15, so...
Got it. Okay. All right, so, again, we're suddenly thrust into the distant future of 2013. The Sentinels seem to have taken over the United States and have imprisoned mutants in internment camps, or they've killed other mutants or other super beings. We discover the woman on the cover is an older Catherine Pryde, so not Kitty Pryde anymore. And she has come up with a plan with Wolverine, Colossus, Franklin Richards, and a mysterious woman named Rachel. They didn't say who Rachel was in this, did they? I don't remember.
No, I don't believe she has a last name of Summers or... and even with Franklin, I think they just say who he is.
I could have sworn they said Franklin Richards, didn't they?
I'm gonna check.
Yeah. Okay, you check. I'll keep going through the rundown here. So, okay, so we've got a group of mutants in the future. They come up with this plan to send Catherine's consciousness back in time to her past self in order to prevent this future tragedy. They do succeed, and we get Kitty having to convince the X-Men that she is actually from the future, and that she has been sent back in time to prevent the assassination of Senator Kelly, which sparks the events that lead to the grim future that she lives in. So the X-Men of the present, of 1980, they fly to Washington, D.C., and they arrive just in time to see a new brotherhood of evil mutants bust into the Senate chambers and threaten the life of Senator Kelly. All right, that's the rundown. Did you find it, Stojr?
I did, and they say it in one of the the dialogue setup boxes at the top, whatever those things are called, where it's the narration boxes.
Did they say?
I must have skipped past it.
That's okay. Did they say Rachel's last name too? Because it occurs to me, where we are right now, Jean Grey is dead.
They don't. They just say, is Lady Rachel a telepath telekinetic? So there's like hints, with the hair and the powers, but they don't say her last name unless it's somewhere else and I'm missing it.
Right. Okay. All right. That's what. All right. Anyway, your thoughts, Stojr?
First of all, this comic came out in the greatest month ever, the month I was born, right? January 1981.
Oh, nice.
So, Or at least that's the cover date of it. It might have been released a little bit earlier than that. You got to love that. To your point, the actual cover of the book is iconic. I mean, it's been, reused and homaged, hundreds of times, and rightfully so. Old Man Logan or Old Man Wolverine or any sort of future Wolverine still wears that outfit because it's a great outfit. White hair. It's interesting that when we learn later the age of Wolverine in real life, or well, in comics, right? And how old he actually is. But fast forward 30 years and he gets a lot grayer. But somehow, in the last 100 years or so, however old he's supposed to be at whatever point in time we're talking about Wolverine, he did not go gray during that period of time. It's also interesting. Like, I don't think Terminator was out yet. Like, this feels very like plot like to Terminator, right? Send somebody in the past to save the future. And while I'm not up on all late 70s sci-fi or anything like that, maybe that was in other types of, popular science fiction back then, or books or whatever.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research. I meant to do more, but I delved a little bit in here. So, real quick, Terminator came out in 1984. As we were discussing Back to the Future a moment ago, I was also wondering, how many time travel stories have there really been that might have been influenced? I think I just saw this on Wikipedia, so again, take it with a grain of salt. Something along the lines of Byrne had said that he had been watching Doctor Who and admitted to be heavily inspired by Day of the Daleks, which is an episode which I haven't seen. I have not watched Doctor Who. I've never really gotten into that, but I get the impression it's something like this: of they go back in time to fix the futures or something to that effect. So
Mhm.
at least there's a Wikipedia article that claims Byrne said that he was probably inspired by Doctor Who.
Yeah, and that's all. That's no surprise, right? Doctor Who dives into a lot of that territory. I wouldn't have been surprised either if there was some Star Trek episode, although there was only a couple seasons of the original, so Next Generation would have been more likely, but that's not out yet at this point in time of having some sort of similar inspiration here. So, I mean, the reason why this all feels familiar for all these other pieces of media is because whether they came before or after this is something that has been reused many times and is always an intriguing story. I like the idea that Kitty just joined the X Men, and then we already fast forward to seeing that she's a leader in the X Men in the future. She's a powerful member of the team, a respected member of the team. It really kind of thrusts this new character into importance in a way. If you believe that that possible future is where things are going to end up, and the fact that you have a Magneto in a wheelchair,
Mm.
again, another thing that has been reused. I think in the current post Krakoa but pre Age of Revelation, because they have some weird storyline going on right now where they're in some weird future. In the current From the Ashes era, I think is what it's called, era of X Men, Magneto's in a wheelchair again, as part of one of the X Men teams. So again, things that they've sort of reused in different ways over time. I there's very little of this issue that I can pick apart and have issues with, right? The introduction of the the new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. We have new characters. While Mystique is not new, she was. I looked her up. She was in Miss Marvel books. And obviously the Blob is not new, but I believe Pyro and Avalanche are new. And and Destiny is also new. So all of that is interesting. You get Senator Kelly taking center stage after his introduction in the Inner Circle Hellfire storylines prior. You get a good costume beat 'em up battle in this. And as I go through this, there's very little like wording, panels, pacing that I have problems with. Though there's one thing that does jump out at me, like Wolverine's thought bubble just always felt weird on page 299, where they're all trying to interpret what Kitty's saying and trust her after future Kitty is mind is in the or Kate is in the mind of Kitty Pryde. and he says she looks like a kid, but stands, talks, and moves and smells like a woman. Like I don't know how her smell changed just
Yeah.
because that always like was weird to me. Uh, but yeah, and I guess one final thought, like we mentioned Franklin Richards earlier, and the inclusion of Franklin Richards here is another interesting thing. And when you know where Byrne is going to go and go and write the Fantastic Four and in the future, it's not that surprising. But it is interesting that you're taking this child and growing him up and inserting him into an X-Men storyline, and the importance of him later across the Marvel universe is not known at this point in time, and how powerful he becomes and how interesting. So the fact that he's in these issues is that great connective tissue that is always good across all Marvel entities. Anyway, I've glazed this enough. What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I've got similar thoughts here. Including Franklin Richards, I thought honestly was inspiring. I think it has been established that he was a mutant at this time. I'm not sure if his powers have truly been established, and that's also why I don't think we see him do anything. But we know that Franklin Richards will eventually become one of, if not the most powerful beings in the universe, and that hasn't quite been established yet when this comic came out. But he's a known mutant in the Marvel universe. It makes sense that he's going to be here, and we've got the little details of the graveyard that Catherine Pride walks through, and you see the names of all the people buried there, which includes the Fantastic Four. So that tells us that this dystopian future, it's not just mutants being targeted, even though they're the primary target, but it's anyone with potential for being non-genetically normal humans or what have you. So yeah, I like all the little details that are found there. Also, having this mysterious Rachel included in the future opens up future story possibilities, which of course we're going to see eventually when we get to that. And honestly, having a time travel story like this, I think establishes a new sci-fi timeline that just feels important for the X-Men, all right? It solidifies that the work that they do is important. They know what the future might lead to should they fail in their mission of, trying to get mutants and humans to live together in harmony, with butterflies and glitter and rainbows and all that. But also to stop the potential evil mutants like the Brotherhood, right? So, I like that we're back to an incredibly high stakes storyline after the Dark Phoenix saga. We had that little dip with the Wendigo story, and that was perfectly fine. I like how the story starts where we see the stakes right off the bat with the depiction of this terrible future and the threat of nuclear war. And honestly, I just like a good time traveling story. They can be overdone, but so far as I know, this is one of the few in the Marvel Universe that seem to have any real importance at this point. Although I say that, and then I think back on, okay, I guess there's Kane, but it never seemed like Kane's stories have this looming effect of what the future is going to be. Nor Immortus, Doc Doom, and his time travel machine. They don't seem to have the, I don't know, cachet, this looming feeling of this is the future we're trying to prevent, and the X-Men just kind of know it now. And maybe, honestly, now that I think about it, maybe the comics don't really have that either, but it just feels that way because this has been represented so many times in so many different medias between the cartoon show and the movies and so forth.
Yeah, I think I'm hesitant to think outside of like throwaway stories where you know when Bendis rebooted or had the heroic age of the Avengers, there was some flashes of the future that they were trying to figure out what that is and prevent. Or during that same time period, there was a lot of like breadcrumb trails for like potential future storylines and trying to prevent things where you might see something like a flash of different characters. In fact, they do it in that History of the Marvel Universe comic that I always go back to, where at the end when Galactus is is finally sort of dying and losing his his ability to concentrate. Franklin just kind of gives him little bits and pieces, and those bits and pieces weren't out in normal comics yet. Those were future storylines. So there's little things like that happen, but I'm hard pressed to think of like another like prevent the future type of storyline. I mean, the Krakoa era kicks off with a bit of that because the House of X, Powers of X, has that ingrained in its storyline. So like they revisit it from that perspective. And you're right, all of the Kang, Immortus, Doctor Doom stuff. I mean, the only other time travel story I really think of that has weight similar to this might be when Iron Man and Doctor Doom are trapped in like King Arthur's past, right? But beyond that, I mean, this is it. This is the top of the pile.
Um, Stoger, correct me because I may be wrong on this. Because I've already mentioned how this is going to be a sad admission on my part, but I dipped out of comics for a little bit in the '90s because of the Clone Saga happening in Spider-Man. I never read Age of Apocalypse. That is a empty spot of mine. Is that not also a time travel one that Apocalypse somehow
So
changed?
the kickoff to it in Legion Quest is because somebody goes into the past and kills someone, and that causes our present time to be different. It basically spins up a different reality, depending on how you look at it. So you can look at it from a time travel where it creates a Back to the Future 2, we're in the present day, but it's all messed up type of thought process. But it's not technically considered the future. I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell one way or the other because everything's so different that you could have a speech blurb that says this is the future or you say this is the present. It doesn't really matter. But in that book, it's supposed to be the 90s when it's the age of apocalypse. It's just a different universe that's taken over by apocalypse because something happened in the past.
Okay, so it's kind of similar to this story, only that the starting point is the X Men of the future is actually the X Men of the present,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, spoilers, for and I have a question for you too before we end the episode
Okay,
about spoilers. But spoilers, what happens is Legion goes who's Charles's son, goes to the past to kill Magneto, and like he's like, I'm gonna help my dad and prevent all this stuff from happening. But what he ends up doing is killing Charles.
mm.
So because he kills Charles, like nothing, like they never stop Apocalypse. Then he's able to take over. All these things happen, and there's this like paradox because he killed his father. So like, how's that work? Which breaks reality and all of these things. So that's where the Mcron crystal comes into play and kind of sweeps across the universe and restarts everything into Age of Apocalypse. So it's like it plays a little bit with like, is this a different reality or is this a different timeline? But yeah, they're not trying to prevent something. They're like he made a mistake basically.
Well, hopefully we get all those in epics, and I'll get to read them one day. I managed to find two of the complete collections for cheap used, but I haven't picked, like, I have volumes 2 and 3, and I figured, oh, I'll get volumes 1 and 4 at some point and read these, and just haven't gotten around to it.
They've recently released them. You might be able to still find them because they republished the Age of Apocalypse complete collections, and they didn't rebrand them as epics, which
Yeah.
was a little bit head scratchy. So whatever volume was the last one to come out, I don't know if it was the last one or two or three or whatever, was released like over the summer. So they might be back in print. You might be able to find them.
Yeah, and actually, I think that was kind of my inspiration of when I saw volumes 2 and 3 in the used bookshop for super cheap. I was like, oh well, volume 1 just came out. Oh, let's just, even though they're not epics, they're at least thick trade paperbacks. I like that format, so I'd give it a whirl. And I just never got back around to buying volume 1. All right, that's all I have. Stoger, what was your question? Your thought
Yeah,
on?
so I guess spoiler question for anybody who's able to comment in here and for yourself. I think I think I played a little fast and loose with spoilers because what I like to do is tie these storylines to things that happen in the future. And while I try and avoid, spoilers that will really affect a story, I look at it like if this is already in the zeitgeist, if people already kind of know about this because, in the case of Rachel Summers here, like she's been a character for, 40 years, since this storyline came out, and people might know who she is. That might be safe. But it did give me pause that maybe I should have, not said that and left that to be to be you know, to not spoil it for people, so to speak. So, who might be reading this for the first time. So it'd be interesting to see if anybody comments, if anybody finds that I'm over spoiling and I should rein that in a little bit, or if you like the idea that, I try and tie these things to future storylines and things that people might have experience with if they're used to the modern books and they just haven't read the older stuff.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of with you on that. I would be curious as to what anyone in our audience has to say on that, because I think that's part of the fun here. As you say, these are 45 years old, right? These stories have been around for, well, longer than I've been around. I guess this one is exactly the same amount of time you've been around. So it shouldn't really, and this is part of the fun of comics, is how does this history lead to today, right? How does it lead to the characters that we know and love today, and in which case we have the starting point, right? We're looking back, and so I don't, I view it as chronology more than spoilers, but yeah, they are still stories, so we'll see what people think on that. I don't want to go, exactly as you say, Stojr, I don't want to go crazy. I don't want to be spoiling absolutely everything left and right and talk about the end of this storyline before we get to it, but for things that happen later on that we have ramifications of, then I think I'm okay with that being fair game. We'll see what the audience thinks and we'll adjust accordingly. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, anything else to add, Stojr?
Nope. All good. Look forward to the part 2.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you guys enjoy our thoughts, again, catch us every day on these one-shots. Our next full epic review is going to be December 14th. We're going to read Avengers West Coast Volume 1. That will be December 14th, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. If you want to watch live, we'll live stream that one. Okay, well, until next time, bye for now.